Upon arriving for the mission to clear the spider dungeon, Fran tells teacher that they have arrived, and Amanda sees her immediately and jumps at her. Amanda asks her how her night went and tells her she misses her. She asks Fran if Fran dreamt about her the night before, and Fran replies that even if she dreamt about her, she's sure the dream was a nightmare. Amanda feels bad for Fran's words and asks Fran to warm up to her. The other members of the mission, which is headed by Cruz Riozel, an adventurer from the Duelist class and under level 33, inform the others of their mission. He tells them that the mission is to clear a spider dungeon, and after clearing the dungeon, the mission is also to test 2 Class E adventurers who are in their midst. He asks the others to introduce themselves, and the first person who introduces himself is Azure. Azure is the leader of the Azure Guardians of Azure, a ranked C party. Also, Crad, a leader of the Dragon Roar, a Class E party, introduces himself. He tells the others that he is there for his examination along with his colleagues, and he's very sure he will blow their minds with his skills. In like manner, Furion, a wood elf elementalist and the leader of the Forest Evil party, introduces himself. Teacher looks at Furion and says that Furion is from the same class as the guild leader, but compared to the guild leader, Furion is bland, and the party is also bland. After the others introduce themselves, Amanda introduces herself as a member of the Class A adventurer group. It is obvious that the task is a minor one, and it doesn't call for the presence of an adventurer like Amanda. It comes more as a shock to the others because they never expected to see Amanda in their group. And most of them do not even recognize her. They whisper within each other as regards to her presence, and the last person in the group to introduce herself is Fran. She tells them she's a member of the Class D adventurer group, and her best food is curry. Teacher corrects her by saying that the adventurers do not know what she means by curry, but she says her thing regardless. As Fran finishes her introduction, Crad jumps down from the tree. He asks if Fran is the unqualified adventurer who has been promised without the due law. In defense, Fran tells him she's qualified, but he repeats that their mission is filled with an A-class adventurer who only joined the mission to brag about her strength, and a D-class adventurer who became an adventurer due to the favor of the guild leader. To make matters worse, he calls the guild leader a pedophile and says he only promoted Fran for his ulterior motive. Before Fran could even react, Amanda walks towards Crad from behind, holding his face and lifting his head high. Crad immediately figures Amanda isn't one for him to talk to anyhow, and he immediately apologizes to Amanda. He tells Amanda he doesn't mean his words. Teacher comments that Amanda is so fast, and he didn't expect her to attack Crad in that manner. After twisting Crad's head on his neck for a while, Amanda releases him, and his party members try to pacify him. Instead of eating up his words about Fran, he insists that he can go on a mission with Amanda, but he can't go on a mission with Fran because he's sure Fran isn't qualified. He says Fran is a baby who should be with his mother at home, and she doesn't have the right to call herself his superior. For the first time, Fran responds to him. She tells him she is qualified, and he has no right to call her unqualified. He repeats that Fran is just a kid and she should return to her mother at home. Angrily, she tells him she doesn't have a mother and that her mother is dead. Cruz interferes, trying to make the atmosphere better. He tells them that their mission is to clear the spider dungeon. They are to investigate the dungeon and take its resource and the dungeon core while killing any of the monsters that cross their way. Crad replies that he is sure the monsters in that dungeon are rank F monsters, and he can clear them all without any stress. Cruz tells them that they aren't authorized to clear all the monsters as the dungeon survives by sucking the powers of the monsters inside. So if they kill all the monsters, the dungeon won't be able to regenerate itself. Cruz informs them that Amanda is only there as an observer, and she doesn't have the responsibility to interfere in the battle because, if she does, it is no longer a test, and she can clear the dungeon by herself without any stress. He tells them that they will proceed to the dungeon immediately. They all walk in a line, and they cross the water. As they walk, Teacher tells Fran that he had heard from Garus the day before that the dungeon is one of the only dungeons without a dungeon master. The dungeon recreates itself with the powers of its monster, so the dungeon favors the city because of the valuable crystals they get every year. As a result, every other city wishes to take a possession of the dungeon. Crad is behind Fran on the file, and when they are about to cross a river, Crad attempts to hit Fran from behind and push her into the water. But before he does so, Fran leaves the stone. He tries to hit the stone and falls into the water. Fran looks at him in disgust and asks Amanda what's wrong with him. Sarcastically, Amanda comments that he may want to take a dip. Angrily, Crad stands up to Amanda and calls her an old hag. As expected, Amanda carries him up and strangles him with her hand. They eventually get to the dungeon, but unfortunately they arrive much later than expected. Cruz tells them that their time calculation has been wrong, and irrespective of that, they will camp at the dungeon till the next morning when they will attack. He picks a monitoring schedule to divide the team on how they will watch their coast. He says that Fran will be the first person to watch others, and after Fran's time, the members of the Azure Party will watch. After the members of the Azure Party, the Evil Forest Party will take their turn, and the Dragon Roar Party will finish it up. As Cruz finishes dividing the duty, Crad asks when Amanda will do her watch, but Cruz tells him that watching and securing the perimeter is also part of the test, and if Amanda gets involved in it, it will no longer be a test. He asks them to bring out their tent and food so they can all camp there. Fran begins her night watch. She sits beside the fire and blows it. As she does so, Crad comes behind her and pushes her with his spear. He says he doesn't think he can trust a person who got her promotion through connection to watch himself and his party mates, and he asks her if she thinks she can watch them. She tells him that she could watch them, and she also explains that she didn't get her promotion through connection. He insists on his words and says if she wants to prove her strength, then she should duel against him. Teacher tells her not to listen to him, and he advises her to keep a low profile and not disturb anyone. But when Crad sees she's silent, he mistakes her silence for being weak. He says with the big sword she has on her back, she is still too weak to fight. He says her sword is useless, and she should throw the sword away. Fran is ready to accept all insults directed to her on her personality, but she dislikes every insult directed at Teacher. Without Teacher's consent, she stands up and decides to fight. Teacher assumes that the others will stop the fight, but every other person is interested in seeing how the fight goes and who will win the fight. As the fight is about to start, the members of the Dragon Roar group hype their party leader. He also reassures himself that Fran got her promotion through connection, so there's no way she's strong enough to fight him. Fran immediately begins with her wind prayers. After her prayer, she calls her two elements, the wind and fire. Crad is shocked that there is someone who could use the two. He activates his spear, and Fran brings out her sword. He tells her that no one has ever defeated his spear with a sword, and will ensure that he defeats her. He uses his double spear against her, and to his amazement, she dodges both spears. She activates her power swing, and she hits him repeatedly. She dodges all of his skills, so much so that none of his attacks could hit her. And after she makes him fall, she uses the back of her sword to hit him and teach him a lesson. His colleagues come to pick him up. After the fight, Amanda comes to meet Fran. She tells Fran that Fran has fought well, and she wants Fran to use her as a practice too. She asks for a duel against Fran and says if she wins, Fran will call her Mama, and if Fran wins, she will stop teasing Fran. Fran accepts her condition for a duel, and the fight starts. At first, Amanda doesn't take the fight seriously. She brings out her whip with the mind of using it without calling any of her magic power, but Fran dodges her whip. She activates her powers to the whip, and the whip chases Fran. Fran dodges it as the others look at her at wonder. What kind of monster she is? She eventually activates her parallel thoughts and flare blast. She hits Amanda and collapses, but Amanda stands up. Amanda tells her that her unique skill of spirit affection, a skill which revenges against any of her enemies, was activated unknowingly, and it has injured Fran. Fran faints, and Amanda takes care of her until she's awake. When she wakes, Amanda apologizes to her for going too far in the fight between them. She says she didn't know Fran could push her that far. Fran admits to her defeat, and Amanda reminds her of the conditions attached. She asks Fran to call her Mama. On the other hand, Fran also wishes to redeem her promise, but she can't help herself. She tries to pronounce the word Mama, but she can't. While she struggles, Amanda hugs her. Amanda tells her she knows Fran can't trust her that easily, and she also understands that Fran's mother is worth a lot to her. She tells Fran not to bother calling her Mama, and she wishes that Fran would trust her one day. Teacher uses his falsehood magic to check Amanda. He realizes that every word Amanda has told Fran is from her heart, and none of it was a lie. He agrees that Amanda is indeed the guardian of the children. The following day, Fran appreciates Cruz for helping her take her shift. He tells her that the duel is important as it shows her great powers, and no one will think she used connections. She sees an injury on Cruz's face and asks what's happened. Cruz tells her that after she sleeps, the others ask to duel against Amanda, but none of them can hold on as strongly as she did. They all proceed into the dungeon as the episode ends. After Fran's altercation and her duel with Amanda, which she slightly loses, she and the members of the Dragon Roar party move to go to the spider nest. As they arrive, she's excited to get her second nest, and she's glad to work. She gets there with Amanda, and the party leader of the Dragon Roar party informs the other members that the spider nest is not an ordinary dungeon, and it is certainly not like the last dungeon that Fran has encountered. He continues and says that the first level of the dungeon has stone pillars and obstacles, which will be difficult for a low-level adventurer to clear. He puts his team, the Dragon Roar party, and the Advance party in charge of cleaning the first layer of the dungeon and destroying all the stone pillars and obstacles. As he talks, his party members reply that it's a cakewalk and they will do their best. The first member of the Dragon party, Janelle, responds to Crad that they will do their best and ensure the project is a success. In contrast, another member, Bart, reaffirms what Janelle has earlier said by certifying their head that they will do a great job. And the last member, Victor, joins his team too. Meanwhile, Amanda and Fran are walking majestically towards the dungeon. Amanda tells Fran that the dungeon was quite popular during the time when she was a young adventurer, and they aren't the first to walk through the spider nest. She narrates that back then, everyone wants to enter the dungeon, and everyone wants to be the first or part of the first to enter the dungeon. A lot of people entered, including parents of young kids, in a bid to make a name for themselves. Unfortunately, they all died. As a result, their kids became orphaned, and it was then that she decided to contribute her quota to help the kids by creating an orphanage home. Fran asks her if she got all the help and admiration to do a project that difficult because she is a strong adventurer, or because she earns so much money. But she replies that she is wrong. Fran says that when she did all of that, she was no doubt one of the weakest adventurers, and she had no skills. The only reason she could pull that off was the help she got from the other members of the society who opted in to help her. Crad breaks into their conversation. He tells them to stop talking and concentrate on the mission at hand. And about the same time, some of the adventurers by the nest tell them they can feel some trap spiders coming. In the twinkle of an eye, they are all surrounded by level 6 trap spiders. The Dragon Roar team get into action immediately, and they start attacking the spiders. The trap spiders also bring wool from their body to trap the fighters, but the soldiers avoid the wool and stab most of the spiders. They succeed in killing most of them, and after their first feat, one of the members of the Dragon Roar team, Rauzel, speaks. He says that the trap spiders are of level 6, and they are most times the easiest spiders to kill. However, the only disadvantage is that they trap their opponent in wools, and if an adventurer is trapped, it's the end. Another adventurer adds that the trap spiders are allergic to fire, and if a fire is used against their wools, it will dissolve. Rauzel accepts that the adventurer is right. He tells them the wools can't retain fire, and they will get destroyed. On the other hand, the wool holds much value in their market, and it is sought for, so it will be much in their favor if the wool isn't destroyed. As a result, he commands that no one should use fire on the wools, and that Fran should be careful with the threads. After the back and forth and a long conversation, Rauzel concludes that Fran should handle the wools with delicacy. It's obvious the conversation is directed towards Fran, and Teacher wonders if they have all taken Fran as a pyromaniac. After defeating the spiders at the level 1 underground dungeon, they move to level 2. As they get there, Rauzel tells them the level is harder than the first level. He says they will meet monsters who aren't just spiders at that level, and the demons will be difficult. As they climb towards that level, Fran asks Amanda a question. She asks her what's the difference between technique, skill, and magic. Fran also says she can use all of them, but she wants to learn about them and how to use them. Teacher is shocked that Fran has opened up to Amanda to the extent of asking her such questions, and Amanda is also excited that Fran is now free with her. She jumps and says she will only reply to Fran if Fran hugs her. The other adventurers say they are interested in that topic too, and at that moment, a monster flies towards Crad. Amanda starts her explanation. She says techniques are fighting methods bestowed by a fighter's level of mana, and they can be used by channeling your mana to a weapon. She talks about the combat technique and says that it's the martial arts technique used, and it is said to have been given by the god of combat and the god of martial arts. Just about that time, Crad uses his spear technique to defeat the monster in front of him, and uses his power swing to divide and break it. They continue towards the third underground bunker of the dungeon. As they work towards that part, Amanda talks about skills. She says skills are gotten by the level of the warrior's mana and how it can be used. Skills are gifts that can only be advanced if it has first been gotten. And when they step on the third part, Rowzel informs them that that part of the dungeon is much different than the ones they have passed through. He says there is no hiding place in that part, so there are not so many monsters. Before he finishes, the adventurers get excited that they have eventually seen a place of rest, where they can be in an open space and Crad steps on one of the blocks. Suddenly they realize that there are traps. Rowzel continues his description and says everywhere in that part is filled with traps and they have to avoid them. And when he finishes his words, some of the adventurers have been buried inside the traps. One of them even touches a part of the wall thinking it will destroy the trap, but he doesn't know he has released some of the monsters inside the wall. Amid this commotion, a piece of wood hits Crad between the legs. As they settle down a little, Rowzel asks one of the adventurers, Ezel, to use his trap detection skills to remove all the traps on their way. Ezel manipulates his skills, and suddenly all the traps around get destroyed, and Amanda concludes what skills are. Teacher looks at the trap detection skills in admiration, as he tells Fran that they will have to get those skills, as they will need them when they are in the dungeon alone. Amanda continues to the last part of the question, which is magic. She says that magic is a gift from the gods. It is only given when the gods are satisfied with a person's strength, and there are 4 types of magic, which are the earth, fire, water, and wind. She continues and says that these first stages of magic also have their advanced stages, which are ground, ocean, inferno, and storm, respectively. Fran asks her how this magic can be gotten, and she tells Fran that any of the type of magic you want, you have to be acquainted with that part that gives such magic. For water, you have to love water, bathe in water, understand water, bury yourself in water, and swim to the advanced stages of water before you can learn to control water. And you can't do this unless you are acquainted with water. She says that for earth, you have to swim in and bury yourself underground before you can get the magic. Fran asks her how she got her wind magic, and Amanda replies that she was carried away by the wind, and she followed the wind naked. As she mentions naked, all the adventurers are surprised. Fran says that's the magic she wants, and she will do it, but teacher claims he will never allow her to do such. As they get towards the 5th floor, they encounter some trapped spiders. The spiders are overwhelming, but the adventurers forge ahead. One of them, Furion, uses wood magic. This makes Amanda continue her explanation by saying there's also complex magic, which is the combination of more minor magics to make a bigger one. The addition of water and earth gives wood magic. Wind and water give frost charm. Water and fire give life magic. Wind and fire give thunder magic. Wind and earth give dust magic. And earth and fire give molten magic. They arrive at the 5th floor of the dungeon, which Rowzel tells them is a bonus floor, and there is nothing on the floor, so they can sit and rest. Following all of Amanda's teaching, Fran decides to reward her by giving her curry soup. Teacher is amazed that Fran has gotten so familiar with Amanda that she is offering her food. Amanda continues her teaching. She says that there is also poison and necromagic. Fran asks if the people using poison and necromagic see bad people, but Amanda replies otherwise, saying a magic is a gift and all gifts are gifts. She also talks about teleportation magic. Just as they are about to move to the 6th stage of the dungeon, where Rowzel says the dungeon core will be, and where they will end their journey, Fran asks Teacher for the thunder magic. Teacher replies to her that she has just learned about complex magic, and even if he gets it for her, it will be suspicious if anyone in that room finds out she could use complex magic. She begs Teacher, who eventually agrees on the condition that she won't use it in the dungeon. He upgrades their wand magic to level 10, and since their fire magic is on level 10 already, they get the thunder magic. She attempts to use it, but he stops her. Upon arriving at the 6th layer of the dungeon, they find out the trap spiders are ridiculously strong. The spider poisons some of the adventurers, and Fran has to heal some of them. Looking at the strength of the spiders, Fran asks Teacher to do an appraisal, and they find out that the spiders are the advanced level trap spiders, and they are the trick spiders of level 10 who can use poison. Rowzel figures ranky adventurers can't defeat such a level, so he asks Fran and Amanda to find a means for them to return to level 5. As they do so, Victor and Bart get stuck. The party uses fire to release them from the wolves, but the duo has been poisoned with confusion toxin. As they all return to the 5th level, Victor and Bart insist they see the spiders, and they keep running away until they run to a place where Izel hasn't removed the trap. They push Fran with them. As they land, the floor lights up, and they find out that there is teleportation magic there. Teacher asks Fran to hold him well, and he will bring them out, but when Fran teleports, she teleports with Teacher. Amanda finds out weapon detection magic is also there, which explains why weapons didn't teleport with the victims. She asks Izel to check where they will be teleported to, but when they get to the room, they find out that the teleportation direction has been changed. The others say it's impossible for all these to be done without the dungeon master, but Amanda says it's possible in the presence of a monster, which is the advanced version of a spider, the trickster spider. In the room Fran and the others have been teleported into, they meet the trickster spider. Fran wonders how she can defeat such a monster without Teacher, while Teacher is also concerned about the well-being of Fran in that room. Fran and the 2 other adventurers, Victor and Bart, wonder what's happening to them. Fran is terrified and scared as she doesn't know what to do. She knows quite well that she can't use magic or use any skills with Teacher, and now that she doesn't have a weapon, she can be defeated. The other 2 adventurers also wonder where they are. They scream Crad's name and the names of the other adventurers in their team, but no one comes to their rescue. Within a split second, they realize that they are on their own. The huge spider comes in front of them. She laughs at them as they also detect her aura and figure she's much stronger than any of them. She activates a part of the dungeon, and about 5 arrows stab Victor. The others scream his name, and they figure out there are traps in the dungeon. At about the same time, different woods and arrows attempt to stab them. They all run around the dungeon trying to avoid the spike of the wood and hoping that they won't die. On the other hand, by the other side of the dungeon, the others wonder what could have made them teleport suddenly without an instrument. Amanda says that there is only one spider in that dungeon that could do that, so it could only be the work of a spider that has evolved to the trickster level. And they wonder if a spider can evolve that quickly, suddenly. Even if it's an evolved spider, how could it evolve that suddenly? One of them comments that it may be the work of another person. But the others shut him up, saying that he should get them scared. They remember that the captives do not have their weapons and will be in danger, so they are determined to find them as soon as possible and save them. They split themselves into 3 groups, 2 of them which are 2 teams of adventurers, and Amanda works solo. Amanda picks Teacher, and she determines to find Fran. Teacher, on the other hand, is concerned about Fran. He promises to find her and save her, although he knows that the promise seems impossible, as he can't think of anything to do. The adventurers decide to move to another part of the dungeon, and they start their search. After searching about 2 parts of the dungeon, they still couldn't find Rue captives. As Amanda comes to a wall, she uses her magic wind and noise to collect magic to search the entire area, getting the noise and the voices of people within the walls to find out if Fran is there. She says that there are several spiders in the dungeon, so she finds it difficult to pinpoint the voice of the trickster spider, and she also can't hear the voice of Fran. Teacher watches Amanda as she uses this skill. He comments that the skill is useful and will surely come in handy. He also says that he used his telepathy skills to find a way to communicate with Fran, but all his efforts are abortive. One of the adventurers reminds them about a situation where people teleported into the wall, so some of them hit the wall, hoping that the captives will come out. Meanwhile, Fran and the other captives try to avoid the traps. While jumping around from the woods, Fran steps on a trap that activates a part of the floor, which hits her. She crumbles on the floor as the spider looks at her and laughs. Teacher is, however, determined to save Fran. He thinks of any of his skills that can be used to find her. Teacher thinks of what he can do. He wonders if all of his lifetime is gathering skills and magics by fighting all the dungeons can provide something to save his dear Fran. And he decides to check through all of his skills. Meanwhile, Fran is tired and exhausted from running. In every part of the room that she runs to, she activates another terrible trap. She screams at herself and asks herself why she's too useless to do anything or fight for herself. Teacher continues thinking of what to do, while Amanda also keeps up with using her noise control to find the place Fran and the others are. While Teacher keeps looking at his skills, he contemplates if he should use the parallel skills, but he changes his mind and keeps checking. He eventually finds the kin summon skills. He remembers that the skill they took from the beetle leader in their former dungeon and assumes he can summon kin that may help him find Fran. He wants to summon, but he thinks that if he does any summoning in that room, Amanda will notice. And he doesn't want to put Fran in the situation of explaining what has happened to Amanda. However, he changes his mindset and says the most important thing to him at that moment is finding Fran, and Amanda doesn't matter. He speaks to his announcer and asks which animal can be summoned immediately. His announcer replies that he has a beast wolf, and she also mentions several types of wolves. The list gets exhausting, and he doesn't know which of them he should pick, so he asks his announcer which of the wolf can find Fran in the dungeon. His announcer tells him that the onyx wolf will do a great job. Within the twinkle of an eye, teacher summons the onyx wolf. As the summoning starts, the bright ray of light attracts Amanda. She turns toward the light and sees the summoning is happening. She wonders who in the dungeon summoned Kin, and as she thinks about it, the summoned wolf comes out. She recognizes that it's an onyx wolf, and she watches as the wolf sets out to attack in a direction. Teacher, on the other hand, speaks to the wolf and asks the wolf to search the dungeon and find Fran. However, the wolf refuses to heed his voice. Instead, the wolf keeps sending explosives towards Teacher. Amanda notices that the wolf isn't attacking her. Instead, the wolf's attacking another part of the dungeon. And she also notices the wolf doesn't belong to the dungeon. She decides that even if the wolf belongs to the dungeon or not, she has the responsibility to defeat it. She sets out to fight the wolf, and Teacher speaks to her with telepathy. He tells her that he is the one who summoned the wolf, and she should please not attack him. She asks him who he is, and she notices he is using telepathic powers. He says he can't explain to her who he is at that moment, but he is Fran's companion. And he is worried about Fran, which is why he has summoned the wolf to find Fran. She tells him that although she doesn't know him, she believes him, so she allows the wolf to do its work. However, instead of going to Fran as the teacher has ordered, the wolf keeps attacking Teacher. Amanda tells Teacher that the wolf has gone berserk. She explains that he is being overpowered due to the powers and the mana used by the summoner in summoning it, and he is feeling so much pain that his heart is about to burst. He feels like the summoner has purposefully summoned him to make him feel pain, and animals in such situations tend to attack their summoners in revenge, which explains why the wolf keeps attacking Teacher. Amanda tells Teacher that the best way to pacify the wolf is to give the wolf a name if the wolf doesn't have one. Teacher asks his announcer if what Amanda has said is true, and his announcer says there is a 95% probability that the wolf will get calm if he gives the wolf a name. Teacher is left in the dilemma, thinking about the best name for the wolf. He says he is in conflict and he doesn't know what name he should give him. But since the wolf is here to help him find Fran, he will name him Urushi, the Darkness Wolf. So, as the wolf jumps toward Teacher to attack him again, Teacher screams the name, Urushi. Immediately he calls the name. The wolf stops, takes the mana from Teacher's body, and becomes a good familiar. He acquires the same skills as Teacher, and Teacher is amazed as regards to how great naming a thing could be. He tells Urushi that it should smell him and take the scent of Fran so they can find Fran. Urushi does as his master has commanded. He carries Teacher in his mouth and runs. Amanda asks why they're leaving her, and Teacher tells her to run after them. Meanwhile, Fran is the only captive still surviving. The spider unleashes a trap that scratches her cheek. She gets poisoned and collapses. She cries and says that's the same way that she was weak before she met Teacher, and she can't do anything without Teacher, as she is about to give up. She imagines Teacher and what he would tell her. He tells her she can't give up at that point, and that she is strong. The tiny spiders crawl toward Brat and Victor and overwhelm them. Fran regains her powers while thinking about Teacher, and she goes to meet Brat and Victor. She helps them send away the spiders. They wonder why she is that strong despite being poisoned, and she goes to fight the trickster spider so she can distract her. Eventually, Urushi gets to a wall that he thinks links to where Fran is. Amanda uses her wind skills to break the wall, and they find out spider webs have been used to close down the road, and they will get trapped if they pass through it. Teacher says he could do it. He thinks of the skill to use in that situation, and he eventually decides to burn it. He acknowledges that he may lose all of his powers if he does so. On the other hand, Fran prepares to hit the spider, although she knows she is too weak to destroy it. As she jumps, Teacher's fire burns the spider. Teacher goes to meet Fran and she embraces him. He says he should heal her, but she thinks that they should fight the spider first. Teacher heals her, and she hugs him despite the fact that his body is hot. He tells her she is his strongest student, and he's very proud of her for holding on until that time and fighting despite being weak. Amanda arrives. She jumps at Fran tearfully and says Mama is happy. Fran tells her she isn't her mother, but embraces her. After the greetings, Amanda asks Fran who the sword is and says she wants to know. She figures her question may be discomforting, so she says she knows it's wrong to ask about another adventurer's weapon and magic, and she knows the secret can only be said to someone she trusts. Fran replies that she trusts Amanda, and Fran tells Teacher that she wants to tell Amanda their secret. Although Teacher is glad that Fran has found a human she can trust, he gets jealous of Fran and Amanda, but allows Fran to tell Amanda the secret. Fran tells Amanda the secret, and Amanda is so excited to meet Teacher. They eventually go to meet Victor and Bart. Amanda asks them what they last remembered to know if they had heard the secret Fran told her, but they didn't hear, so she leaves them. Teacher also introduces Urushi to Fran. They leave to join the other adventurers on the 6th floor, but when they get there they can't find anyone. Teacher wonders if the other adventurers could have been hurt, so he says that they will send Urushi to find them. At that moment, the female spider screams. They all hear the voice, and they see a light from the wall. They watch as another creature, a spirit, emerges from the wall. In what can be called a trance, Amanda remembers her childhood period. In her memory, she's awakened by a woman. She tells her that Kinan is awake, and that they are waiting for her so they can eat. The woman mentions Amanda's name, and Amanda returns to her reality in the dungeon. They see a white bird which calls a monster. Meanwhile, the other members of the team are ambushed by several monsters. Crad cannot defeat the monster, and Cruz tries to kill the spiders with his team. A member of his team apologizes to him because he thinks he is the cause of their issue. He says that if he had checked the traps and removed them, they wouldn't be in that situation. But Cruz tells him to leave that time for regret later, and they should ensure that they survive that place first. Crad says there is no way they can survive. He's already weak, and his partner, Jenel, is poisoned. The other members of the second party have been captured, and they are wrapped in webs. The other members cry out. They say that the spiders want to lay eggs in them, and they think they will die soon. They reassure each other about their survival. Cruz summons his last courage to help. He activates his sword technique and his Dawn Break. He uses it to clear off some of the spiders. After clearing them off, his colleagues inform him that they are running low on magic and potions. As they wonder what to do, they see that another trap has been activated. They see a large rock rolling towards them, and they all resign to the fate that they will die in that dungeon. Just before the rock rolls over them, Fran arrives while riding on Urushi. She slashes the rock, and she tells them that she has come to save them. Crad reunites with the members of his party, Brat and Vitor, and Amanda also helps the captured people. The set of adventurers who have been wrapped in webs call for Fran's help, and she sends Urushi to save them. The whole place is filled with spiders, and they need to clear the space. The bird which Fran had called a monster goes to meet his agent. It turns out the bird is a guardian angel to one of the party members, and it was the boy who sent his bird out to get help. The bird, named Tarua, tells his agent that Fran called him a monster, and the boy apologizes that it's because Fran doesn't know he is a guardian angel. Fran begins to battle the spiders in the dungeon. She asks the teacher if she can use her flames, and teacher gives her permission, so she uses her burst flames. The burst flames seem not to be enough, and she uses her tri-explosion, and she blows off most of the spiders. At this point, Amanda also interferes. She uses her tri-explosion to attack the monsters, and another member of the party uses Gale Hazard. As they all fight with their different techniques, Fran sees the trickster spider again. She looks at the spider and shows Teacher the spider. She tells Teacher that she wants to do her revenge, and that she must defeat the spider. The trickster spider also realizes he's in danger. As Teacher gives Fran the right to attack the spider activates spider webs from its fellow spiders, and she covers herself with the web. Fran complains that the spider will escape again, and Teacher thinks of what to do. Realizing that everyone in the team is weak and tired, one of them sends his guardian angel, Tarua, to encourage the others and also to weaken the powers of the spiders. As Tarua pours its powers on the adventurers, they get more strength. The other adventurers tell Fran that they will defeat the spiderlings, and since Fran wants to get revenge against the trickster spider, they leave her with the trickster spider. She and Teacher decide to use the flare blast against the trickster spider. They use this to remove the web on the spider, but the spider doesn't die, so they proceed to join their power and mana together, and they use their elemental sword fire. They activate the thunder magic, which they have gotten immediately after Amanda taught them about second-tier magic. They use the thunder magic to activate the stun bolt, and the stun bolt hits the spider very hard, that the spider angrily attacks them back in its own powers. Teacher tells Fran to quickly kill the spider so they can take the crystal. However, when the spider hits Fran, it triggers the same memory Amanda had at the beginning of the episode. She remembers when she was living with two black cats, Flamia and Keenan. Flamia and Keenan both wanted to become adventurers, and they wanted her to teach them to fight. She believed becoming adventurers would kill them, so she decided not to teach them how to fight, thinking they would change their minds about becoming adventurers. They eventually became adventurers, and they were killed. She says the favor she thought she was doing for them eventually led to their death, and she won't allow the same to happen to Fran. On the other hand, Fran recovers from her former hit, and she stands up to fight again. However, as she's about to call her magic, she sees some movement behind her. Amanda calls the storm magic, and she activates the wind Voltasur. She uses it to destroy the trickster spider completely. It looks like a film in the eyes of the other adventurers as the monster in front of them becomes completely eradicated. While the others wonder about the powers Amanda has, both Teacher and Fran are angry at Amanda for her act. Without knowing of their anger, Amanda runs to Fran to hug her. She screams that she's glad that Fran is fine, but she's confronted by harsh words from both Fran and Teacher. While Teacher wonders why Amanda didn't leave the trickster spider's crystal so he could use it, Fran is angry that Amanda has spoiled her revenge game as she has wanted to kill the spider herself, to revenge for what the spider had earlier done to her. Amanda realizes that her positive act has turned bad, so she apologizes to Fran. She tells Fran to forgive her, saying that she will cry if Fran doesn't forgive her. She calls herself Fran's mother again, but Fran says she has forgiven her, and she isn't her mother. While Fran and Amanda go back and forth about this, Teacher is more concerned about Amanda's power. He says that Amanda's skills are greater than that of the greater demon, and he isn't shocked because she is a Class A adventurer. They eventually find another hole inside the dungeon. Cruz tells them that it should be the dungeon core, and they enter. Upon entering, they see several crystals and valuable things. Cruz tells them it's the treasure trove and everyone should bring out the bag earlier given to them. He tells them to put the treasure into the bags and warns them that the mission is secret, and they must not tell anyone about the treasure. He says anyone who reveals about it will be punished by both the city and the guild, and they must not steal anything too. As they pack the treasures, Crad goes to Fran. He swallows his pride and apologizes for his earlier words. He appreciates her for saving his teammates and says he can't be enemies with a person who controls and rides on a wolf. As he talks, Fran sees a spider on his head, and she attracts the spider. As a result, she cuts off a part of his hair, and he gets angry with her. He says he doesn't like her and he doesn't wish to be friends with her. They all talk about how the dungeon core is fueling the spider's power, and they consider if they should kill the high-class monsters here. Amanda reminds them that the dungeon grows with the monster's powers, so such decisions should be left for the guildmasters to make. They eventually leave the dungeon, and Fran tells Amanda that she wants to be a black cat who evolves. Amanda tells her she had friends who were black cats, and they had the same ambition, and Fran asks her if her friends eventually evolved. She tells them her friends are dead. They return to the city and Fran meets the guild master. He tells her she has done a great job, but she says she didn't do anything. The guild master reminds her that she successfully defeated Amanda in a duel, saved her colleagues from the trap, and she rescued her colleagues in various ways, so she has proven that she is fit for her class. Teacher, however, is relieved that the suspicion of favoritism will stop and the guildmaster will be cleared. As a reward for all of her work, the guildmaster gives her the ticket to the Olmut Guild. He asks her when she's leaving, and she tells him she will leave in 2 days. He asks her to check her class before leaving. She goes to check her class and she sees that she has been promoted to a sword magus. She happily goes to Garrus to collect the black cat armor, which Garrus has been building for her. Garrus puts the armor on her, and although Teacher sees that the armor is nice, he's concerned because it seems as if the armor opens Fran's belly. Garrus explains that the armor has a protective shield that does the work of a regular armor despite being open. He says the armor will not only protect Fran, but will also increase her mana. He asks them if they are going to Olmut, and he says he is relocating to Olmut too. Fran asks him to follow them, but he reminds them that they are passing through water, and a dwarf can't pass through water, so he's going to walk on land. But if they get to Olmut, that they should look for him. Fran returns home to meet her subordinate, and the man tells her a black cat visited with some cutleries, and she recognizes that it's Fran. The man says whenever he sees Fran, he remembers Amanda's old black cat friends. Amanda remembers her friends again, and she regrets not teaching them how to fight. She says she wallows in regret about her uselessness. Fran is eventually leaving Alessa. She bids everyone goodbye, and Nell tells her to return to the city anytime she feels like it. Amanda goes to her and asks her not to push herself too much. She tells her teacher to protect Fran. As Fran leaves, teacher asks if Fran won't call Amanda Mama, as Amanda has requested. But Fran says Amanda is different from her mother. She, however, decides to call her the name for once. She calls Amanda Mamanda, and Amanda tears up. Amanda remembers the time her friends used to call her Mamanda, and she remembers that they came to tell her about their child. She reveals that she knows Fran is her late friend's daughter. Later, the guild leader Klimt speaks with his cousin about how the dungeon's monster evolved. He says it's August's work, and August is working with their opposing city, Rido, so that the Ridos can take the dungeon from them. He asks his cousin if he thinks Fran is suspicious, and if there is anything to be concerned about. So his cousin calls out his guardian angel, Tarua. Tarua says Fran is an extraordinary girl who speaks to herself at all times. But despite that, she cannot be a spy. However, they all agree that it will be fatal for their city if Fran works against them. As Fran continues her journey with teacher, they are all ambushed by Jean du Vix.